The mascara wand trembled in my hand when my phone buzzed across the vanity. I watched Harper's name flash on the screen, and my stomach dropped. Mom was adjusting my veil while my bridesmaids laughed over champagne in the corner. The photographer had just finished capturing candid shots of us getting ready. I answered, hoping it was a quick congratulations call. Instead, Harper's voice cut through like ice. "Melissa, I need you at the office immediately. We have a situation that requires your attention right now." My reflection stared back at me, half my makeup done, wearing the wedding dress I'd saved 18 months to afford. "Harper, my wedding starts in 4 hours," I said carefully. "This isn't negotiable," she snapped. "Your wedding isn't my problem. If you want a future at this company, you'll be here within the hour." She hung up before I could respond. The room fell silent. My mom's face went pale. My maid of honor, Jessica, grabbed my arm. She did not just say that, but she had. My wedding day had just become Harper's power move. My hands shook as I unzipped the dress. Jessica tried to stop me, insisting I ignore the call, but I knew Harper too well. She'd threatened terminations for less. I'd seen her fire people over vacation requests. This was exactly the kind of test she'd create to prove her control. I pulled the delicate fabric over my head and threw on sweatpants and a t-shirt. The contrast felt absurd. Lace and tulle pooled on the floor while I laced up sneakers. "This is insane," Mom said, tears forming in her eyes. "Michael won't believe this." My fiancé was across town getting ready with his groomsmen, blissfully unaware his bride was about to abandon their wedding preparations. I grabbed my laptop bag and car keys. "Tell the photographer to start without me," I said, fighting back tears. "I'll be back in time for the ceremony." Jessica hugged me tight. "We're documenting everything," she whispered. I didn't understand what she meant then. I just ran. The office parking lot was nearly empty when I arrived. Saturday morning, completely silent except for my ragged breathing as I sprinted toward the entrance. My badge beeped at the security door. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I rushed through the maze of cubicles toward Harper's office. She sat behind her desk, casually eating a blueberry muffin, scrolling through her phone like this was any ordinary morning. No crisis team. No frantic colleagues. No emergency client call. Just Harper looking smug and satisfied. "You're late," she said without looking up. "I got here as fast as I could." "What's the emergency?" Harper pushed a folder across her desk. "I need the quarterly summary report formatted and submitted by noon. I forgot to approve it Friday, and it's due Monday." My vision blurred. I'd left my wedding preparations, my once-in-a-lifetime morning, for a routine report she'd neglected. A task that could easily wait until Monday. Task that took 30 minutes maximum. "This could have been an email," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. Harper leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "Could have been. But I wanted to see if you're really committed to advancement here. Actions speak louder than words, Melissa." She stood up and walked toward the conference room. "Everyone's waiting." My confusion deepened. Everyone. I followed her into the glass-walled room where my entire team sat looking uncomfortable and confused. Saturday morning, pulled in for what purpose? Talia, Marcus, and the others avoided eye contact. They knew something I didn't. Harper positioned herself at the head of the table like she was about to deliver a keynote speech. "I've called you all here to witness something important," she began, gesturing toward me. "Some people in this organization want promotions and raises. They talk about dedication and loyalty. But when it comes down to it, they can't even prioritize company needs over personal hobbies." Personal hobbies. She just called my wedding a hobby. The veil I'd forgotten to remove still hung from my messy bun. Talia's expression shifted from confusion to outrage in seconds. I watched her hand slip under the table, positioning her phone carefully. Marcus's jaw clenched. The others exchanged glances that communicated everything. They were done watching Harper destroy people for sport. "A wedding isn't a hobby, Harper," Talia said firmly. Harper waved dismissively. "It's one day. This company is your career. Melissa needs to understand where her priorities should be if she expects to move forward here. He turned back to me. I'm disappointed you couldn't see that without being told. My throat tightened. I'd worked 60-hour weeks for 3 years. I'd cancelled vacations when projects ran late. I'd covered for Harper's mistakes more times than I could count. And here she stood, publicly humiliating me on my wedding day because I'd dared to plan a life outside these walls. The report, Harper said, sliding papers toward me. Noon deadline. Don't let me down again. Under the table, Talia kept recording. Every word, every sneer, every calculated cruelty perfectly captured in high definition. I finished the report in 40 minutes. It didn't need any real work. Harper had simply wanted me to jump when she commanded. I emailed it at 10:30 and drove home in a daze. Jessica had rallied everyone. The photographer rearranged the schedule. Mom managed to salvage most of the morning timeline. When I walked back into the bridal suite, mascara streaked and exhausted, my bridesmaids surrounded me with silent fury. Tell me you're quitting, Jessica said. After the honeymoon, I promised. I won't give her the satisfaction of disrupting today any more than she already has. Michael met me at the altar looking worried. I texted him a brief explanation that he still didn't fully understand. But when he saw my face, he squeezed my hands and whispered, "We'll deal with her later." The ceremony was beautiful. We exchanged vows surrounded by people who actually loved us. But underneath my smile, something had fundamentally broken. I'd let someone steal hours of my wedding day. And I was done being that person. Monday morning arrived with Harper acting like nothing had happened. I walked into the office expecting consequences, apologies, something acknowledging the boundary she'd crossed. Instead, she breezed past my desk with her usual coffee. "Hope your little party went well," she said over her shoulder, voice dripping with condescension. Little party. My wedding was a little party. I opened my laptop and started working, but something inside me had shifted. The fear that had always kept me compliant was gone, replaced by cold determination. I wasn't going to explode or make a scene. I was going to be methodical. Talia appeared at my cubicle within minutes, phone in hand. "We need to talk. Privately." We found an empty meeting room. She pulled up the video and hit play. Harper's voice filled the small space. "If you want a future at this company, you'll be here within the hour." Then the conference room scene. Can't even prioritize company needs over personal hobbies. Every horrible word perfectly documented. "We're done protecting her," Talia said firmly. "Tell us what you need." I started documenting everything. Emails where Harper contradicted herself or blamed others for her mistakes. Time-stamped messages showing her unreasonable demands. Meeting notes where she'd promised things to clients then failed to deliver. The team contributed their own evidence, years of mistreatment they'd quietly endured. Marcus forwarded emails showing Harper had taken credit for his project proposals. Talia shared performance reviews where Harper had downgraded ratings out of spite. We created a shared folder, organized and dated. Nothing vengeful or exaggerated. Just facts, timestamps, and clear patterns of mismanagement. Corporate might have ignored one complaint, but systematic documentation from an entire team was different. Meanwhile, I updated my resume for the first time in 3 years. The recruiter who'd been messaging me for months got a response that same afternoon. "I'm ready to talk," I wrote. Her reply came within minutes. "Finally. When can you interview?" The wheels were in motion. I just needed to stay calm and let Harper keep digging her own grave. The interviews happened during lunch breaks in my car. I'd park at the coffee shop 2 blocks away and take video calls with my laptop balanced on the steering wheel. The rival company loved my portfolio. They were impressed by my client retention rates and project completion records. All things I'd accomplished despite Harper, not because of her. "Your reputation in this industry is excellent," their CEO said during the 3rd interview. "People speak very highly of your work." I wanted to cry. After years of Harper telling me I was mediocre, incompetent, barely adequate, hearing genuine praise felt surreal. The final interview was with their VP. She asked the standard questions about leadership style and conflict resolution. Then she leaned forward. "Why are you leaving your current position?" I chose my words carefully. "I'm looking for an environment that values work-life balance and respects professional boundaries." She nodded knowingly. "We've heard things about your current management. For what it's worth, we'd be lucky to have you." 2 days later, the offer arrived. Nearly double my current salary. Remote flexibility. Full benefits. A signing bonus that would cover our postponed honeymoon. I stared at the number and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Oh, Harper sensed something was different. She couldn't pinpoint what, but her paranoia kicked into overdrive. Suddenly I was CC'd on every email, scrutinized in every meeting. She scheduled 7 a.m. check-ins that accomplished nothing except asserting dominance. "Trying to sneak off to another wedding?" she asked once, smirking. Talia witnessed it and added the comment to our growing documentation file. The more Harper tried to catch me in mistakes, the more evidence we collected of her own incompetence. Clients started complaining, not about me, but about delays and miscommunications on Harper's end. She'd promise quick turnarounds, then forget to approve basic requests. I'd get desperate messages from confused clients asking why simple tasks were taking weeks. Each time, I'd politely explain the approval process and forward the conversation to our shared evidence folder. Harper tried hiding client complaints, but the team quietly copied me on everything. Her armor was cracking. She just didn't know how badly yet. I set my resignation date for exactly 4 weeks out. Enough time to transition my projects properly and tie up loose ends. I wouldn't burn bridges or leave clients stranded. I'd exit professionally, which would make her eventual downfall that much more devastating. Then corporate dropped a bomb. An email went out announcing a surprise departmental audit. The VP of Operations would personally review our division's performance, client satisfaction, and management effectiveness. The office went silent when the message arrived. I watched Harper's face drain of color. She immediately called an emergency team meeting. "This is a critical moment for our department," she announced, voice shaking slightly. "Everything needs to be perfect. I'm putting Melissa in charge of preparing all audit materials." Course she was. Harper wanted me to organize the evidence of her own failures. The irony was almost funny. I accepted the assignment with a calm smile. I'll make sure everything is thoroughly documented. Over the next week, I compiled hundreds of pages of reports, client feedback surveys, project timelines, approval delays. Every missing signature pointed directly to Harper. Every delayed deliverable traced back to her disorganization. I organized it chronologically, color-coded by severity. It was the most meticulous work I'd ever done. And it would destroy her. Harper tried preempting the damage. She submitted a memo to the VP claiming I'd shown dereliction of duty by prioritizing my wedding over company emergencies. She painted herself as the dedicated manager forced to work weekends because her team lacked commitment. She specifically mentioned the Saturday morning incident, framing it as her having to personally handle a client crisis while I was unavailable. The team saw the memo and became furious. Talia pulled me aside, shaking with anger. "She's trying to blame you for her own incompetence." But I smiled. "Let her. We have proof of exactly what happened that morning." Talia's eyes lit up with understanding. "The video." We checked the timestamp on her recording. It was synced perfectly with the office security system clock. Indisputable evidence that I was at the office precisely because Harper ordered me there. Her official memo had just become a documented lie. Marcus contributed his own timeline showing the client emergency Harper mentioned didn't exist. No calls came in that morning. No emails. No crisis whatsoever. Just Harper manufacturing urgency to flex power. Our evidence folder grew thicker. Every attempt Harper made to save herself just added more ammunition. The VP arrived 2 days early, catching Harper completely unprepared. I was at my desk when I heard her panicked voice. "But we're not ready for the audit yet." The schedule said Thursday. The VP's response was calm but firm. Surprise assessments are more accurate. I'd like to begin immediately. Harper scrambled, trying to delay, suggesting alternative dates. The VP simply walked past her toward the conference room. Gather your team, please. I'll need everyone present. We filed in silently. Harper sat at the head of the table, attempting to project confidence, but her hands trembled slightly. The VP opened her laptop and began asking questions. How were client relationships managed? What was the approval process for projects? How did the team handle conflicts? Harper answered with practiced corporate speak, painting a picture of smooth operations and effective leadership. Then the VP turned to the rest of us. I'd like to hear from the team directly. Does anyone have concerns about current departmental operations? The room fell silent. It shifted toward me. This was the moment. Everything we'd documented, every humiliation we'd endured, every boundary Harper had crossed, it all came down to right now. Talia spoke first. I have documentation I'd like to share. She opened her laptop and began presenting. Emails where Harper took credit for team members' work. Performance reviews that contradicted actual project outcomes. Instances where Harper had promised deliverables to clients then failed to provide necessary approvals, causing massive delays. Marcus went next, showing the timeline of a major project Harper claimed to have rescued. The evidence proved she'd actually created the crisis through poor planning, then blamed the team when things went sideways. One by one, my colleagues presented their cases. Years of micromanagement, verbal abuse, and professional sabotage laid out in meticulous detail. The VP's expression grew increasingly grim. Harper tried interrupting, claiming the team was conspiring against her, but the VP held up a hand. I'm reviewing documented evidence. These aren't opinions. When it was my turn, I kept my voice steady. I'd like to address the memo submitted regarding my alleged dereliction of duty. I pulled up Harper's official complaint, then opened the photo I'd taken of myself that morning, time-stamped, showing me in my wedding dress at home. This was taken at 8:30 a.m. on my wedding day. I advanced to the next slide. This is the call log showing Harper demanded I come to the office immediately for what she called an emergency. I showed the security badge record of my arrival. Then I displayed the actual work assigned, a routine report that took 30 minutes and had no genuine urgency. The VP's eyebrows rose. You came in on your wedding day for a routine report. Before I could answer, Talia interrupted. There's more. She pulled up her phone and connected it to the conference room screen. I recorded the meeting that morning because Harper's behavior had become increasingly erratic. She pressed play. Harper's voice filled the room with crystal clarity. If you want a future at this company, you'll be here within the hour. Your wedding isn't my problem. Then the conference room scene. Some people want promotions but can't prioritize company needs over personal hobbies. A wedding is one day. This company is your career. The room fell silent except for Harper's recorded voice mocking my commitment while I sat there in my wedding veil, humiliated in front of my entire team. The VP's expression shifted from professional concern to cold anger. Harper's face had gone completely white. That recording is illegal, Harper stammered. I didn't consent to being recorded. The VP shook her head. This state only requires one-party consent. The recording is admissible. She turned to Harper. You ordered an employee to abandon her wedding for non-urgent work, then filed an official complaint claiming she showed dereliction of duty? Harper tried salvaging the situation. She's exaggerating. The work was time-sensitive. I was managing client expectations. There were no client communications that morning, Marcus interrupted, pulling up server logs. No emails, no calls, nothing. The emergency was fabricated. The VP closed her laptop slowly. I think I've seen enough for today's session. Harper, I'll need to meet with you privately. That's when I stood up and placed my resignation letter on the table. The envelope was crisp, professional, my signature bold across the bottom. I wanted to ensure all my projects were properly documented before I left, I said calmly. Everything is in order for my replacement. Harper stared at the letter like it was a weapon, which, in a way, it was. I was leaving on my terms with my integrity intact, while her entire foundation crumbled around her. The VP picked up my resignation letter and nodded once. I understand. Though I wish we were having this conversation under different circumstances. She turned to Harper. My office. Now. After they left, the conference room erupted. My teammates hugged me, some crying, others laughing in disbelief. That was incredible, Talia said. Did you see her face when you dropped the resignation letter? Marcus was already texting people in other departments. Word spread through the company within hours. The manager who'd made someone work on their wedding day was under investigation. The team that had finally stood up to years of abuse was being hailed as heroes. I spent my remaining 2 weeks training my replacement and organizing files. Harper was conspicuously absent. Rumors swirled about her future with the company. Some said she'd been placed on leave. Others claimed she was fighting termination. I stayed focused on my own transition. Professional, thorough, gracious. On my last day, the team threw a small goodbye party in the conference room where everything had changed. They'd brought cake and balloons. Talia presented me with a gift. A framed screenshot from the audit recording, the exact moment Harper's face realized she was exposed. My last interaction with Harper happened in the parking lot. She intercepted me as I carried my final box to my car. She looked smaller somehow, defeated in a way I'd never seen before. Melissa, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. This got out of hand, she said quietly. I was just trying to teach you about priorities. I finally faced her. You made me abandon my wedding to prove you had power over me. That's not teaching. That's cruelty. She shifted uncomfortably. I'm asking if you'd be willing to provide a statement saying there were miscommunications, that things were misunderstood. It might help with the investigation. The audacity was almost impressive. After everything, she wanted me to save her. No, I said simply. I'm done protecting you from consequences of your own actions. She started to argue, but I was already walking away. I'd spent 3 years managing her ego, covering her mistakes, absorbing her abuse. That version of me was gone. I loaded my box into the car and drove away from that building for the last time. The rear-view mirror showed Harper standing alone in the parking lot, finally understanding what she'd lost. Starting my new job felt like stepping into sunshine after years in shadows. The office was welcoming, colleagues were kind, and my boss actually respected work-life boundaries. During my first week, they threw a welcome lunch. My new manager, Patricia, stood to make a toast. We're lucky to have you. Your reputation for excellence and integrity speaks for itself. I almost cried. Those words, integrity, excellence, they were mine again. Harper hadn't destroyed them. She just tried to convince me they were never real. The team at my old company kept me updated. Harper had been officially removed from all leadership responsibilities. An internal investigation found multiple policy violations spanning years. She was demoted and placed under supervisory probation, stripped of her management authority and salary increase. The team she'd terrorized for so long was finally free. They sent photos of their new manager, someone who actually listened and valued their contributions. Talia texted, "We're having our first team meeting where nobody's crying. It's weird but amazing." Marcus, the new boss, asked our opinion on something. Actually asked. And then used our suggestions. Is this what normal jobs are like? I laughed reading their messages. This is what normal was supposed to feel like. 2 months into my new position, Jessica called with an idea. We never properly celebrated your wedding. Harper stole those morning hours, but she doesn't get to keep them. She suggested a second wedding day. A small backyard celebration with the people who'd actually stood by me. No pressure, no schedule, just joy. We hosted it on a Saturday afternoon. My old team came, laughing and relaxed in ways they never could have been with Harper around. Michael and I renewed our vows under string lights, surrounded by people who'd fought for us when it mattered most. Talia made a speech that had everyone crying. Melissa taught us that staying somewhere that demands you shrink isn't loyalty, it's self-betrayal. She showed us that walking away with your dignity intact is more powerful than any revenge. The party lasted until midnight. We danced, ate too much cake, and celebrated not just a marriage but freedom from toxic workplaces and people who tried to make us small. As the evening wound down, I stood watching my friends and family mingle. Michael wrapped his arms around me from behind. "This is the wedding day you deserved," he whispered. He was right. This was joy untainted by someone else's need for control. My new company promoted me 6 months after I started. Patricia called me into her office with a smile. "Your project outcomes have been exceptional. We'd like to move you into senior management." Senior management. The position Harper had dangled like an impossible carrot while undermining every step I took toward it. Here I'd earned it in half a year simply by doing good work in a healthy environment. The promotion came with a substantial raise and leadership training. I'd be managing a small team, and Patricia spent an hour discussing management philosophy with me. Our approach is about empowering people, not controlling them. Respect boundaries. Trust competence. Support growth. Everything Harper had failed to do. I thought about the version of myself who'd answered that phone call on my wedding day. The Melissa who'd been so trained to jump at Harper's commands that she'd abandoned her own celebration. That woman felt like a stranger now. I'd rebuilt myself, brick by brick, into someone who knew her worth. Who understood that good managers don't test loyalty through cruelty. Who recognized that a company demanding you sacrifice everything isn't a family. It's dysfunction masquerading as dedication. My first act as a manager was establishing clear boundaries about work-life balance for my team. No weekend calls unless absolutely critical. No guilt about taking vacation. No testing anyone's commitment to their job by seeing how much personal life they'd sacrifice. Harper tried reaching out once through LinkedIn. Connection request with a message. Would love to reconnect and discuss how we might work together in the future. I stared at it for a long moment, then clicked decline. Some bridges deserved to stay burned. Through the industry grapevine, I heard she'd left the company entirely. Whether she'd been fired or resigned was unclear, but she was gone. Her reputation had taken serious damage. Other professionals who'd worked with her started sharing their own stories. Apparently, I wasn't her only victim, just the most recent one who'd fought back. The wedding day incident had gone semi-viral in professional circles. Not because I'd shared it publicly, but because my former teammates told their networks. It became a cautionary tale about toxic management and the importance of documentation. Someone even wrote a business journal article titled, "The Wedding Day Manager," a case study in leadership failures. They'd interviewed several people who'd worked under Harper. The pattern was clear. She'd built a career on breaking people down, taking credit for their work, and maintaining power through fear. The article concluded with recommendations for corporate culture reforms. How to identify toxic managers before they cause widespread damage. The importance of exit interviews and employee feedback systems. My story had become bigger than just one woman's revenge. It sparked conversations about workplace dignity and professional boundaries. A year after leaving, my old company invited me to speak at their leadership development program. They wanted to discuss the importance of healthy management practices and recognizing toxic behaviors. I almost declined. Returning to that building felt uncomfortable. But then I thought about all the people still working there who might be enduring their own versions of Harper. If sharing my experience could help someone recognize they deserved better, it was worth the discomfort. The presentation room was packed. I recognized many faces. Former colleagues, new hires, people from different departments who'd heard the stories. I started with a simple question. How many of you have worked for someone who made you feel small? Nearly every hand went up. How many of you stayed longer than you should have because you thought that's just how professional life works? More hands. I told my story. Not with anger or bitterness, but as a case study in recognizing abuse disguised as dedication. I talked about the warning signs. Managers who test loyalty through unreasonable demands, who blur professional boundaries, who take credit while distributing blame. And I talked about the power of documentation, supportive colleagues, and knowing when to walk away. The Q&A session ran overtime. People shared their own experiences, asked advice, thanked me for speaking up. A young woman approached afterward, eyes bright with determination. I needed to hear this. I thought I was crazy for feeling like my manager's behavior wasn't normal. Trust your instincts, I told her. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And you deserve better. The wedding day incident became our private symbol of triumph. On our first anniversary, Michael gave me a gift, a custom illustration. It showed a bride in a wedding dress holding a laptop, surrounded by supportive colleagues. The caption read, "The day you learned your worth." I hung it in my home office. Whenever I doubted myself or faced new professional challenges, I looked at that image. It reminded me that I'd survived someone actively trying to destroy my confidence, and I'd come out stronger. Jessica framed the viral video still, the moment Harper's face realized she was caught. She gave copies to everyone on the team as survival trophies. We joked about starting a support group for people who'd worked under Harper. In some ways, we already had one. My former teammates stayed close. We'd meet for dinners where we'd laugh about the absurdity of our old workplace. The time Harper made Marcus rewrite a report 7 times, changing her feedback each round. When Talia was reprimanded for taking lunch breaks. The countless small cruelties we'd normalized until we couldn't anymore. But we also celebrated our new lives. Better jobs, healthier environments restored confidence. We'd all moved forward. Harper had tried to make us small, but instead she'd taught us to recognize our own strength. Sometimes the best revenge isn't calculated destruction. It's simply refusing to let someone's toxicity define your worth. It's walking away with your integrity intact and building something better. It's showing others that they deserve respect, boundaries, and workplaces that value humanity over hierarchy. 2 years later, I was invited to keynote a women's leadership conference. The organizers wanted me to discuss resilience and professional advocacy. Standing on that stage, looking out at hundreds of faces, I thought about the journey from that phone call to this moment. My boss made me work on my wedding day, I began. She wanted to prove she controlled me. Instead, she taught me the most valuable lesson of my career. Never stay somewhere that demands you shrink. I told the full story. The phone call, the manufactured emergency, the public humiliation, and the methodical documentation that led to accountability. But I also emphasized what came after. The rebuilding, the better opportunities, the realization that toxic workplaces aren't normal or necessary. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's insecurity, I concluded. And the best revenge is becoming so successful that their opinion of you becomes irrelevant. The standing ovation lasted several minutes. Afterward, dozens of people shared their own stories of toxic bosses, hostile environments, and the courage it took to leave. That night, back at my hotel, I video called Michael. "How'd it go?" he asked. I told them about our wedding day. He laughed. The worst and best day of our lives. He was right. Harper had tried to ruin something sacred. Instead, she'd set in motion events that led to everything good that followed. My career was thriving. My confidence was restored. My team respected me. And I'd learned that sometimes the people who try hardest to break you end up revealing your unbreakable core. I'd never thank Harper for what she did. But I'd stopped letting her actions define my story. She was a chapter, not the whole book. And the chapters that followed were mine to write. Filled with success earned through integrity, relationships built on respect, and the unshakable knowledge that I deserved every good thing that came my way. The wedding day she tried to steal became the catalyst for claiming my entire life back. And that was the sweetest victory of all.